Squid Game Season 2 is a mixed bag. The production is still top tier, with the show looking and sounding amazing, but the writing, especially with the new characters, feels underwhelming, and the acting leaves a lot to be desired. To properly see where the season went wrong, I think it's best to go back to where it all started. Squid Game Season 1 is really good. Until it isn't. It felt like two very different shows, with the first 6 episodes being a realistic, character-driven story critiquing the world we live in. Then these guys show up. But we can talk about them later. The season is very fast-paced, with the focus of the first episode being entirely on Gi-hun. It allowed the show to properly establish his character and shove him straight into the games within that first episode. The characters that we meet this season are given time to develop, both inside the games and crucially in the second episode, when they're released back into the world due to contestant vote. This episode shows all of our main characters' lives, revealing their motivations for entering the games, while also planting the seeds for future development during the show. The season builds these characters up slowly over time, until we eventually reach the infamous marble episode. This shit broke everyone. The characters we just spent 6 episodes getting to know and love are split up into groups of 2, choosing the people they become closest to during the games as their partners. Assuming they were working together with their partners, it is then revealed that only one of them would be allowed to leave alive, letting them choose what marble-related games they would play to decide the winner. Whenever this kind of thing happens in a show or movie, my brain goes full copium and tries to think of bullshit ways they can survive. This episode is so effective because the characters are doing the same thing you are, before realizing there's no way of getting out of this. Just like Ali, you want to believe Sungwoo's plan. That sweet little dumbass. You're too good for this world, Ali. The next episode opens in a way that reminds me of Game of Thrones right after the Red Wedding, a shot of Ali's dead body to hammer home what had just happened. This episode barely involved the weaker secondary plotline that I'll talk about in a second, starting with a short scene of that trash before giving us 40 straight minutes of cinema. If you judge the show just up to here, it would have been almost perfect, but sadly, we got 3 episodes left, and the next one is called VIPs. The entire time, this season had a second plotline going on with this character named Junho, that to be honest, was pretty bad even when the show was working well, but it was such a small component of an otherwise brilliant show that it could be easily ignored. It followed Junho, a cop who was sneaking into the games to search for his missing brother, revealing what was going on behind the scenes. While it was sometimes interesting, it mostly felt like filler, and eventually led to the introduction of the VIPs. After this, the show drastically drops in quality, only momentarily able to reach the same heights it previously did. I understand that killing off so many main characters results in spare screen time, but that doesn't mean you have to focus so heavily on this boring storyline with terrible actors playing cartoonish characters. Increasing the amount of time given to this storyline while simultaneously dropping its quality made it impossible to ignore. I don't know why these guys think 69 jokes are the pinnacle of comedy, it feels so ridiculous. We get it, they're rich assholes. The lack of subtlety shown here, and then having the VIPs just directly explain the most basic concepts to the viewer, like why contestants are unsure which numbered vest to take, as well as how the simple glass game works, feels insulting. Imagine if during the marble game, it just kept cutting back to these clowns, explaining everyone's individual games, and making jokes about the contestants who were dying. It feels disconnected from the rest of the show, and the first time I watched it, I felt a genuine whiplash, like it accidentally turned on the wrong Netflix show. The creator of Squid Game originally meant for this to be a movie, but Netflix only took it on as a show once he added more filler to the story. I wonder what the filler was. Almost everything to do with this storyline just doesn't work for me. The main character is boring and underdeveloped, and the actors he's working with for the most part are awful. The scenes where he's infiltrating the games are hilarious to watch. Bro is just asking them questions about everything, and sure, eventually one of them catches on, but seriously, this guy should have been shot within 2 minutes of opening his mouth. I will give credit where it's due. These last 3 episodes still have some great moments. Almost everything to do with our main trio is perfect, like the gradual decline of Sungwoo, turning into the villain of the show. They had dropped hints the entire season of the lengths he'd go to win the money, but he never fully crossed that line until these last couple episodes. The scene where he murders Sebyok is probably my favourite moment of the whole show, having Gi-hun run over to the guards to get their attention to help her, only for them to open the door already holding the casket. The final fight between Gi-hun and Sungwoo in the finale feels brutal and emotional, and the VIPs are actually used well this time. In the previous game, they were just yapping about random bullshit. They are used so much better here, to explain the rules of Squid Game. It's a Korean game that these non-Korean men wouldn't understand, making their questioning of the rules actually reasonable, and leading to an organic way for the frontmen to explain how the game works. This finale started so well, man. Just end the show right here. But no, we have time for a terrible plot twist. I think they wanted their Shyamalan moment, but they got the wrong kind. I don't really feel like I need to discuss this one at length. I think everyone agreed unanimously that this was awful at the time. The old man being the leader of it all just felt cheap, and retroactively made the marble episode, the peak of the show, so much worse. When I rewatched this season, I just pretended he was really dead. It was so much better that way. The scene right at the end, of Gi-hun turning his back on his chance to go see his daughter, while believable for his character, feels too rushed. She had been almost his entire motivation this season, and he just flips instantly, with very little hesitation. A real opportunity missed for an emotional ending for Gi-hun, giving up what he wants for what he feels he must do. I honestly thought this ending was going to kill all hype for a second season. So that was season 1. It had very high highs and very low lows, and ended terribly, giving season 2 a lot of work to do to rebuild the show's reputation. Season 2 opens right where we left off, with red hair and all. We get to see Gi-hun traumatize this poor kid, before showing us what everyone's favourite TikTok thirst trap has been up to. I'm glad they didn't even try to pretend he was dead. It was quite obvious he'll be back, even if it seemed kind of impossible for him to survive. While I ragged on this character and his plotline in season 1, he's given a lot more screen time this season to develop, and I actually enjoyed his scenes a lot more. Granted, that is clearly an extremely low bar. Both him and Gi-hun are still struggling with the trauma they experienced last season, established in their very first scenes, showing how obsessed they've both become over trying to find the front man. I really want to know how Mr. Break Your Nose and Drink Your Blood from season 1 became best buddies with Gi-hun. I just want to be a fly on the wall during that moment. I also just can't take this guy seriously. I don't know if it's because I know him from Kingdom or what, but he's just too goofy, and takes me right out of the show whenever he's on screen. This first episode has a lot going on, with many new characters being introduced or given much more prominent roles this time around. It also establishes a new tone for the show, with a lot more outright comedic moments, which felt kinda jarring for me at first, and had me hoping it wasn't going to be a lingering issue. Season 1 had a sense of humour for sure, but it wasn't as over the top and deliberate as this. The star of this first episode is definitely the recruiter, who soaks up a large amount of the episode's runtime. While I enjoy his performance, it felt like an odd decision considering how long fans have been waiting for the second season, only for the opening episode to be continuing on the worst plotline of season 1 and focus on telling a separate story about an unimportant character. That being said, there are still great moments, like the rock paper scissors scene. Great stuff that even this goofy boy couldn't ruin. A super tense sequence with amazing performances from all 3 actors. And the most important part? Unpredictable. The same cannot be said for the Russian roulette scene at the end. The lack of real stakes, knowing of course Gi-hun isn't going to die in the first episode, made the tension disappear, causing the scene to drag on. An overall good episode, but it was a very weak way to open the season, not really moving the plot forward enough and spending too much time on characters that aren't important. Episode 2, however, felt a lot more necessary, speeding the plot forward much more effectively than the previous episode. Having both plotlines converge allowed this episode to feel a lot more focused, while still having time to set up a new character for a great cliffhanger ending. This episode builds the excitement for Gi-hun and the others to finally fight back against the front man, showing the weapons arsenal they had put together, and a group of ex-military that they hired to help them. We get to see a nice scene showing Gi-hun is keeping his promise to Sabyok, trying to bring her mother south of the border, while also checking up on her little brother that he left with Sangwoo's mom. The backstory to the frontman and his brother's relationship, including the complicated dynamics inside their family, was really great, finally giving these characters something more than just surface level. This is what I alluded to before, making this plotline and this character much more engaging this season. Showing that Gi-hun has lost all contact with his daughter during his obsession over stopping the games, crying on the phone at just the sound of her voice was heartbreaking, and something that really should have been addressed more in the season 1 finale. Showing them get absolutely wrecked by the frontman in their attempts to capture him was great, establishing just how in over their heads they are, thinking some ex-military guys and some guns could solve this instantly. Gi-hun, after realizing his mistake, accepts the situation and asks to be taken into the next games. Earlier in the episode, Gi-hun had one of his teeth pulled out and a fake tooth with a tracker implanted in its place, hoping that if he got taken into the games, he could reveal the location of the island to his allies. During this episode, we are also introduced to a new character, a woman working as a children's entertainer. We see her bond with this sick girl, and through this she also develops a connection with that girl's father. Knowing how Squid Game is, I think most of us expected that the father would enter the games to make money for his sick daughter's medical expenses, and that she would enter for similar reasons to Sabyok, to get money to smuggle her own child in from North Korea. So much backstory and characterization is given in such a short amount of time, you really feel for this woman and her struggles, making the ending of the episode hit even harder. That ending, however, contained the twist that she was not entering the games as a contestant, but as a guard. This moment was amazing and had me so excited to see where her character was going to go from here. It's going to go somewhere, right? Anyways, this episode was great, and fully restored my faith in the show that had been shattered by the season 1 ending. I really would have preferred if this was the season opener instead, having some of the more important stuff from the previous episode just added in here at the start. I was fully on board for the next episode to come, after both plotlines had such great cliffhangers that pulled me right in. I'll start with what I liked about this third episode. Some of the new characters are fun. Thanos and Player 196 were quite cute together, but I'm glad she died early because I felt she would have got pretty annoying. Short and sweet was best here. Gi-hun's realization that his tracking tooth had been removed was pretty funny, reminding me of that similar moment in season 1 when he pulled the umbrella. The simple choice of showing the guards' faces obscured behind their masks makes them feel less like faceless drones and reminds you there are real people doing this to them. Allowing the contestants to vote on when they want their games to end while still keeping a cut of their prize money is great, and seemingly quite a kind gesture at first. It was definitely a deliberate way to cause two distinct factions in the contestants though. Making them wear their votes on their chests at all times makes this clear, as well as having contestants stand with their aligned voters when done. Gi-hun choosing to save the man who was bleeding out was a great callback to Season 1, although I think it was kinda obvious he would be shot the second he got across the line anyways. Regardless, Gi-hun's impulse to help has always been a character trait he's shown even before the games in Season 1. It also allows our new GOAT Hyunju to come in clutch, probably my favourite character in the new cast this season. I also really love this ending. Seeing him turn around and stare right at Gi-hun and just smirk like that? What a piece of shit. Okay, now the good stuff's out of the way. I don't want to be a nitpicking guy, but just hear me out. Red light, green light. It's quite simple. Don't move while the door's looking at you. Gi-hun is moving. Like, quite a lot. At first I said, okay, he's just shaking while yelling. I guess his level of movement's allowed. What about her then? We literally see a girl get shot right after for shaking. I don't believe that the games will be rigged in his favour. As much as the frontman wants to fuck with Gi-hun, the whole mentality behind these games is that it's an equalizer, a fair competition where anyone can win. This is made extremely clear in Season 1, and really the only point of the first episode this season. I just can't really ignore such an insane amount of plot armor on display. It just completely ruined the scene for me. On a similar note, how the fuck did Thanos sneak his drugs inside? They weren't exactly hidden very well. Okay, enough nitpicking. Let's look at our new B-plot for this season, which I like to call Clowns on a Boat. I didn't really discuss this new captain character yet, because so far he wasn't really important, but this guy is revealed, in such a shocking twist, to be working for the frontman the whole time. Who could have seen this coming? A random fisherman who happened to be in the exact area to find Junho after he took his little tumble, and then proceeds to just go along with him searching the area for years afterwards. Okay, bro. Okay. This could just be biased because I only know this actor from Oldboy? No, not that one. Never that one. He just plays the most despicable person in that movie, and maybe that's why I smelled this right out instantly. He just constantly is undermining their plans, telling them to slow down and take more time throughout the season, beginning in this episode. It just reminds me a lot of Season 1, when Junho was walking around asking questions inside the games and no one really cared. Also, I hope she dies. In the show, I mean. In the show. This episode wasn't awful, but the game itself really disappointed me, and this B-plot just isn't it. Despite its issues, this ending was still great, and I was excited to see the show's best actor finally getting some real screen time. Episode 4 feels like a massive drop in quality compared to the prior 3. There is some good stuff here, however, like the frontman beating down Thanos and his goon, asserting himself to the audience as a physical threat. Thanos isn't really meant to be a villain this season, more like a chaotic force. We get more of one of my favourite new characters, this mum with her dipshit son. I really enjoyed the scene of the frontman telling Gi-hun about his sick wife, his genuine reason for joining the games years earlier. This character getting properly fleshed out is one of the best parts of this season, for sure. But this episode on the whole really frustrated me. This season's repeated use of dreams for cheap shock moments is starting to get old. First seen in episode 1, where I felt it was justified, but repeating it here was unnecessary. This dream also leads to an interesting question because this is Gi-hun's subconscious, and the dream is focusing a lot on player 1 staring at him while he panics. Meaning Gi-hun suspects him? But that's something that he never really acts on this season. If anything, he gets quite close to him throughout the games, so this dream just confused me. It felt like a moment that was made just for the audience and didn't really fit the character. We get proper introduction to a lot of the new characters this season, and I'll be honest, a lot of their actors aren't doing anything for me, especially these two. When I found out that Junhee is played by an idol, it all made sense. It was really giving Jenny from the Idol vibes. And yes, I did watch that show, and it was a comedic masterpiece, I won't hear otherwise. We get to go back to this organ harvesting subplot from Season 1 that was as boring then as it is now. I'm not really sure why this is here, other than to give her something to do so we don't forget about her. The captain still being a sussy boy, standard for him. But the real crime this episode commits is the ridiculous tone during the game. I don't understand why it's played so much for laughs, it's such a weird decision. The music, the performances, even the guards in little cutesy circles feel so out of place. This tone felt like what you see in the first games before someone is killed. Really weird to have it happening in the second one. The game carries over into the next episode, so I guess I will too. Episode 5 is a much stronger episode, despite this idiot trying to ruin it. Seriously, I think he got into Thanos' stash. Our main group gets to go last in the game, I'm assuming so that in case they lose, everyone can just be shot and player 1 can walk off. It was cool seeing how he deals with his own shortcomings, slapping and yelling at himself to lock in. Pretty scary stuff. After the game concludes, we get to see more of my favourite new relationship this season, player 149 and Hyunju. These two started at a place of genuine misunderstanding, which feels quite realistic and refreshing to see on screen, and the bond they grow to have is really beautiful, making the result of the vote they take this episode quite sad. Both her son and Hyunju vote against their group's agreed decision, leaving room for potentially heartbreaking moments in the next game. I also really like the scene of her talking to the guard to try to go to the toilet, making up a sob story to get inside while this NPC sits behind nodding. This might be her best scene. I think we found her range, guys. Of course she had to bring a new bestie as well, and acknowledges Hyunju as a girl, which you can see makes her quite emotional. The scene of Gi-hun and his friend talking about Sangwoo, the previous games, and their lives together was a nice moment, giving more context to a workplace strike that was mentioned multiple times in Season 1, and showing signs of the old fun Gi-hun we saw before he was changed by the trauma he experienced. The episode ends with the introduction for the next game, and it might be my favourite one of their shows so far. We're going to pause for a second though, and discuss something that I think might be this season's biggest mistake. Episode 6 had the potential to be this season's Marvel episode, with an extremely high death rate and tense moments between characters, when they're forced to choose who they'll help to live and who they'll leave behind to die. But there's one major issue. I don't care about 90% of these people. We're almost at the end of the season, and I only have a real connection to 2 of these characters. By this point last season, we were heading to the Marvel game, and you were heartbroken if any of the main group were killed. The only one not really being fleshed out was Ji-young. I would still argue she's given a lot more than any of these guys though, with the backstory about her family doing a lot of heavy lifting. The main characters this season are split into 3 groups, with our main group obviously being Gi-hun's, the secondary one with these 2, definitely the one I enjoyed the most, and the third group, kind of the villain group, with Thanos. With the attention spread so much thinner this season, it doesn't allow for any real focus on individuals, resulting in many of them feeling underdeveloped. This causes the next episode to lose any real emotional weight. The characters this season also look and act so cartoonish. It feels difficult to take them seriously and connect with them. I don't mind so much when it's Thanos, an agent of chaos who's just here to have fun in his own messed up way. The issue is when our main characters don't feel grounded, realistic. That's why I think I gravitated so much more to these 2, who both feel like real people in this situation, compared to these over-the-top performances, or lack thereof. Okay, with that out of the way, let's look at episode 6. So, like I said before, the game is really good. Like, the best the show has had including Season 1. The game itself is quite simple, being spun around, given a number for your group size, then told quickly to run to the nearby rooms in those exact numbers or die. The chaos and panic that sets in when the group size is updated is brilliant, forcing groups to divide themselves and sometimes even leave individuals behind in search of a new group. The final round guaranteeing a massive culling of the remaining player base. Perfect. Oh no, I hope none of our main characters die. They don't. None of them die. Okay, we do get one minor character death, and I think it's actually a brilliant scene. The group is sprinting to their room, and in the chaos, Plane 95 is knocked over, only for Thanos' best friend, also known as Junhee's baby daddy, to run in at the last second and ensure that they have enough players inside. Her death isn't really sad for the audience though, we barely know this character, feeling more for Hyunju's reaction than the actual person who died. While this can be effective, it never compares to killing someone we actually care about ourselves. The following argument, with everyone's eventual admission that he saved them due to 95 not being able to make it in time, is great. But this guy, man, he was already running at their door. If she hadn't been knocked over, he was just gonna shove her out the way, right? I see you, bro. I see you. We also get this masterpiece. Need I say more? Speaking of shady individuals, I want to talk about this guy. First off, I am not buying he found a group when he split off in the first round. I think he just found a cheeky spot to pop a squat, and just waited. He also warns Gi-hun about the final round a few seconds early, giving him a little head start, which leads into a theory that I've cooked up that I'll discuss later. And that final round, man, Jesus Christ. Snapping that man's neck with that cold dead expression? Chilling stuff. But while this game was great, and had some standout moments, it felt so cheap. Multiple characters seemingly betray their partners, one being less deliberate than directly here. Nothing comes of this though. There's no stakes, you don't feel like any of them are in any danger anymore, the plot armor is just too strong. I understand it would be a bit cliche to have the son or the mother directly responsible for the other one's death, but come on, someone has to die for any of this to have tension. Killing off the least developed character does not count. During all this, we keep cutting back to my favourite plotline, and I'll be honest, I'm using all my willpower not to fast forward through these scenes. I just don't care at all. The fact that these guys are still disconnected from the main story this late in the season is such a joke. This episode ends with the building tension between the 2 voting sides, stoked by the game runners the entire season, finally reaching its boiling point, when the vote results in a draw. The vote is then set to be retaken the next day, giving players on both sides time to influence the vote, any way possible. This predictably turns into a bloodbath, with the saddest moment of the entire season right here. My fucking goat, man. He was just misunderstood. Rest in peace, King. Now we've reached the finale, and oh boy, was this disappointing. I don't know how this show manages to always end on such a low point. We continue right where we left off last episode, Thanos with full accessory equipped and all. That shocking twist I mentioned earlier of the boat captain's betrayal comes in this episode, with one of the dumbest conversations I've ever had the misfortune of watching. Oh, you heard a guy screaming? That's just the waterman, don't worry about it. Go back to sleep. Thankfully we don't see any more of this trash plotline, as this episode is the epic, action-packed finale inside the games. We start with the throwback bedtime brawl first seen in Season 1. This time though, Gi-hun is using it as a distraction, sacrificing many of his fellow contestants who voted alongside him, something that the frontman seems genuinely impressed by. We get a discount Saving Private Ryan scene right here. Thank God this one didn't last 15 years like the one in that movie. Another scene that just wasted his potential. This moment could have been gut-wrenching to watch, but it's focused on characters that barely got any screen time. Now it's time for Gi-hun's master plan, and for everyone to play dead. This plan almost instantly fails, but the frontman saves Gi-hun, killing the guard right before he can shoot him. Very suspicious. Hyunju really pops off in this finale, carrying this team of useless idiots so far. This is some full-on Stormtrooper aim though. The plot armor I mentioned earlier is just going crazy this entire episode. You could make the excuse that they're trying not to hit the frontman by accident, but there are so many ridiculous moments. They make sure to bring a couple randoms to die along the way, pretending like there's any real danger, but that doesn't fool anyone. They loot the bodies of the guards for their weapons, ammo, and radios, and with everyone geared up, it's time to go find the frontman. They manage to take one of the guards hostage and grill him for information. Like I said before, I don't want to nitpick too much in this video, but this guy loses his mask, then has it later to open this door without ever explaining to them that it's essentially a keycard to access further rooms. Hey, stop asking questions. Don't worry about it, he's dead now. These scenes feel so bland, with them just firing back and forth across hallways. It's just so mind-numbing to me, only ever seeing one or two of the randoms who agreed to tag along ever getting hit. I do have a genuine question here. Am I supposed to read this as a former Marine who has PTSD, or a stolen valor situation? The way he acted in earlier episodes made me lean towards the latter, always trying to flex his tattoo and using it as a way to appear more manly. He also used the captain's favorite tactic, and tried to change the subject a lot whenever it was brought up. He gets sent off to go get more ammo for Hyunju to 1v9, while Gi-hun closes in on the inner rooms. Gi-hun and the frontman then split off into two groups, allowing the frontman to betray both the men he's with, fake his own death, and then have a quick costume change for the grand finale. I can't wait for the frontman Theater Kid backstory reveal. That costume change was just too swift, man. Our squad of extras is eventually overrun, with many of them being held at gunpoint before being executed. I'm assuming this is the guard we met in episode 2, finally having some interaction between these two, ending with her shooting him. I'm calling it right now, that's a non-fatal shot, and she's going to smuggle him out using the organ harvesting system next season. Finally, the frontman confronts Gi-hun, in all his masked glory, and executes his friend right in front of him. This guy's been relishing in the pain Gi-hun has gone through all this time, and keeps him alive to inflict more next season. So, for that theory I mentioned earlier, was this all intentional? Let them get the guns and fight back. Spice up this year's games. It would have all ended instantly if the frontman hadn't saved Gi-hun, and it seemed way too easy to get as far as they did. This also kind of retroactively fixes that Stormtrooper aim issue, allowing them to progress further before killing anyone. I know a few masked assholes who would really love to watch this kind of thing. I just hope for their sake Contestant 69 is still alive. That's it. That's Season 2. Well, I think Season 2.5 would have been a much more honest way to market it, but hey, that's Netflix for you. I think to properly judge what this finale is will require seeing Season 3 and what comes next, as this was purely just set up, with nothing actually being resolved in this finale. An underwhelming end to an extremely average, bordering on boring season. Never quite reaching the lows of Season 1, but getting nowhere near the peaks. A plot stretched too thin, stuffed full of unnecessary characters that eat up screen time, not allowing anyone real time to shine. The lack of balls to kill off characters really hurt this season. As I mentioned before, many scenes lost any real tension because you knew no one important was going to die. The fake out deaths and dream sequences really showed how desperate they were to try to fix this, as they were just trying to force shocking moments into a season that didn't have any of its own. Squid Game Season 1 felt realistic, with its characters and their performances being more subdued, which added to this feeling of unease and sometimes horror at the events shown. That feeling, like this could actually happen in a not so distant future, was what made the show connect on such a universal level with everyone who watched it. Season 2 ignored this. It felt like watching a television show the entire time, with melodramatic, over-the-top performances and flamboyant characters pulling you out of it constantly. If you need further proof for how important the realism factor was, just look back at Season 1, and how hard it nosedived once it started exploring the secondary plotline, filled with the same issues I just mentioned. I was extremely doubtful going into this, worried that the season would continue the downward trend seen at the end of Season 1, and not really seeing the point in continuing Gi-hun's story. A prequel show, revealing how the frontman became who he is, from a contestant to the man running the games, would have been a much more interesting watch. You've got a big name actor here too, who is amazing in everything I've seen him in, being a major standout this season as well. It seems like a slam dunk. I just wish they'd gone that direction instead. But this is what happens when you make the biggest show in the world. Money talks, and now we have 3 seasons. I really hope this next season fixes a lot of the issues I had here. And please, for the love of God, do not bring these guys back. Also, either bring the subplot of the main one, or I don't know, their boat tragically sinks, never to be seen again. Every time the show would cut to one of these boat establishing shots, I would just sigh. That's all I really have to say. I guess I'll see you again in a few months. Hopefully making a video about how amazing the 3rd season is.